Yeah, I want to tell you a story about collaboration. About 3 months ago, I was at Melrose Arch, and I was meeting an art curator and somebody that I was working with on supporting the arts on the continent. Somebody I met on an aeroplane coming from Cape Town, and it's something we keep forgetting, that often we meet people and we don't follow through. So I was on this flight from Cape Town. And I'm privileged sometimes to fly in front of the plane. So they say you meet important people in the front of the plane. And so this young man came in, and he had this very cool dress code about him. And I've been supporting artists for many, many years. So if anyone knows Nelson Makamo, I was the first guy that wrote a check for him. And I'll tell you the story about why this collaboration was important. About 14 years ago, I was at a dinner, and I'm always finding myself leaving to another place. So the following morning, I was going to France. And that night, there was a dinner hosted for all South African artists, leading black South African artists. And the youngest lot of all the artists was a young man called Nelson Makamo. Extremely shy. He just wouldn't say much. He was at the end of the dinner table. And I had this bad habit that I smoked. So the dinner was pretty boring, so I went outside the house to have a cigarette. And Nelson followed me. And he says, my name is Nelson Makamo, and I'm a budding artist, but I feel out of place here. So anyway, I said to him, look, tell me about your artwork. And he had this very good vision about something he wanted to build. And he had not produced great work then. He was just starting off. So I said to him, Nelson, he kept me company during my cigarette. I said, in the following morning, I'm actually leaving to France. I'm on an early morning flight. But let me ask you, what do you want? He says, no, I just need a paintbrush and maybe some guidance and support. Somebody I'd barely known. And on that table were all our leading artists. So I had a friend of mine, that said, can you give this guy 20 grand in the morning? I'm leaving, and then just send me, and then my company will pay you the 20,000. Don't ask this guy any questions. Just transfer the money. So the following day, my friend transfers the money. And I come back a few weeks later for my trip to France and Europe. So Nelson calls me, says, don't you want to see the paintbrushes? I said, no, I gave you the tools to make a damn painting, Don't tell me about the small components. And that's how Nelson Makamo grew. And one day, when he was in town, he had a small studio, and on the third floor, this studio had no lifts. The lifts were not working, And a woman called Oprah Winfrey was in South Africa, and she was meeting all these leading artists. But she keeps hearing about this name of a young man called Nelson Makamo. And anyway, she gets to this building. She's with a private jet at OR Tambo. Oprah gets there, and she has to walk up 3 flights of stairs. So unfortunately, this is not television. She's pretty tired by the time she gets to the 3rd floor, And she says, I want to meet Nelson Makamo. And Nelson now is dressed in an overall, and with this hat of his, so he just looks like a caretaker. And he just listens to her. He doesn't respond. She says, I want this painting, I want this painting, I want this painting. And he says, my name is Oprah Winfrey, And Nelson doesn't respond. By this time, we've trained him a little bit better, So he says to Oprah, look, I think you can only have one painting. He says, you tell Nelson, my name is Oprah Winfrey. He says, no, look, the guy who gave me the money for the brush says I must only give one painting at a time. And my name is Nelson Makamo. So anyway, she surrenders and she buys one painting. And she says, how will I get it? She said, well, you can FedEx it, you can DHL it. So anyway, they arrange it. She delays a flight. And she phones him every day subsequent to say, where's my painting? He says, I'm not FedEx. My name is Nelson Makamo. Speak to FedEx, we'll get you a painting. When she gets to the U.S., at her home in California, in Malibu, she shows people all the artwork she bought. But the most outstanding piece of art was by this young man called Nelson Makamo. And everybody says, who is this guy? He says, no, I'm his agent. This is how the story started. He became the first person in the history of the world to have his painting on the cover of Time magazine. For you, he's a young South African. It's never done in the history of the world. So that painting is called the timepiece, And when Time magazine gave him the honor, the award, because it is very unique about the work his artwork is. Anyway, they offer him $1 million for the original piece. He says, no, I have to call Nathan. So Nathan sounds very Jewish, So they assume that he's got this Jewish manager. So he calls me, and I said, no, but this belongs to Africa, isn't it? If it's an artwork and it was produced in Africa, it's a unique piece, why do you put it in a museum? It must belong in your home, Nelson. Go to hell with the $1 million. So he says to the Time guys, no. Nathan says, no, not $1 million. So they offer two. He says, no, there's no money to buy this painting. And I'll tell you why I tell that story, because, and the rest is history. If you go to the White House, you'll find these paintings there. He has remained very humble, by the way. He doesn't do TV interviews. People like Jay-Z have bought his work throughout the world. We are building a studio down the road for him now. He still dresses the same in overall. I think many magazines have done work on him. But it took that one night for somebody just to say, let me help you. It wasn't a contract. I've never asked anything of him. He has donated some stuff to me, which I've given back to him. I've only kept one timepiece. But his vision, he asked me a few weeks ago, I said, no, it's time for you to go to all the schools. So he will now take his money and build similar art schools in the country. He said, go and find me the next Nelson. So I met another artist, because I've always been supporting artwork, So that artist's name is David Mbele. He's late. He was a blind artist. And he was the last artist from the original great artists of our country. And for the last 10 years of his life, I funded him because he could barely see. These were the last paintings of him being blind. So art for us tells us a different story, that, this is the unspoken people. We don't appreciate we talk about technology. So technology for me is art. And you'll understand why we have this ecosystem. So Stephanie, I meet a colleague of hers on the plane, and we start talking about sculptures. He is from West Africa, and he uses a company in Cape Town where they make the metal sculptures, the designs, and it's quite a complicated process. But 2 hours on the plane, I was so excited about this concept. And anyway, we become friends. He gets to the hotel, he comes to see what we do. And on a Saturday morning, I said, let's meet at Melrose Arch. We have a cup of coffee, because I was also flying away. I think he was leaving. And I just got back from Italy yesterday, so that's all my life I'm on the plane. So I said to him, then he says, Nathan, I would like you to meet a young girl. So she's not at the meeting. This is half an hour in the meeting. He says, no, what I saw in your office, there's a young girl called Stephanie. I'd like you to meet her because she's very passionate about technology, And I said, I don't have much time, but come. So that's how Stephanie came to the meeting. So there she came. She was very shy. And she spoke to me about all the stuff she's doing. And she said, no, I'm doing some work with the company. This is what we do on CRM. And it's called HubSpot and Wendt Partners. That's exactly how we met. And I said, Stephanie, come to the office sometime. Fortunately, I think I delayed my trip, and she came to the office the following few days. And that was about 2 or 3 months ago. I stand to be corrected. And I said, come. I said, from today, this is your office. That's what gave rise to today's function, in fact. So all our lives, what do? We have 24 hours a day. We're extremely selfish people, because we don't share those hours. Most people don't need money. They just need some attention. Or maybe just to hear them out, And then Stephanie says, no, this is our work with Doug. I was in Cape Town at my other office, so we have this call online. I think the first one was a mishap about timing with the other people. Anyway, we met with Doug. And because I grew up in the US, so I'm a South African that went into exile from a young age. I went to prison when I was 16. I would not be here today were it not for somebody very grateful. Other colleagues of mine who had gone to the death row in KZN. And I was just 16 years in solitary confinement. My 17th birthday was in prison. So I had no chance. I never believed I would see 18. Because my sentencing was going to be when I was 18. And those days, if you're sentenced to death, within 3 months you were hanged, So for those who know the late Andrew Zondo, we come from the same crew. And so we didn't believe we will see 18. So when people ask me why we have so much energy, because we are living beyond our expectation, And a lot of our colleagues of mine never made it, right? Some were left the border, were shot. So when we look at our country, I think it's just that we lack this issue of just talking to each other. And that's what gave rise to it. And then she spoke about CRM and HubSpot. About 2 years ago, she and a partner were talking to Ishmael, and they're supposed to go for a HubSpot conference to Boston. Yes. And there was this concept of working with HubSpot. And that's the first time I realized, okay, it's something we can do. So that's how this thing started, in fact. Empire Partner Foundation, for us, with the middle word is important, it's partner. So whatever we have to do, we have to find that partner. We can't replicate something. We're not allowed to duplicate it. It was started in 2015. The thinking was simply to solve the public sector. And my view in Africa is that of the 54 countries, I've had the chance to be in 40 of them. So I think it's a beautiful continent. Most of us just know Johannesburg. We don't know Arusha. We don't know many parts of the continent. They are unbelievable continent. It's very, very big. But I said, if we solve the public sector, we will do something bigger. And why was it? Because the numbers are very simple, right? In Africa, we're 1.5 billion people. Our average age is 25. And 65% of our population is below the age of 25. So for those who did mathematics, the actual number is 18.82. And that will be the average population in the continent. Japan's average population is 52. Europe's average population is just about 50, 51. Including Donald Trump, America is 49. Excluding him, it's 51. He's the youngest guy we've got in town, right? And so around the world, you have a new dynamic. We have an aging population. And we have the inversion in Africa. We have the youngest growing population. And our stats show us that this age bracket of below 20, we will enjoy for another 50 years, at least. China is now, for the first time, depopulating. So it means the average age of a society will increase. India started the depopulation curve because the younger people get married later, don't want to have kids, or they are woke, I believe. They have a new model about procreation, as they would call it. So I said, if we have this opportunity of so young people, and all my life I've been the beneficiary of others assisting me, when I needed the chance, why can't we go and reach out to the youth and create an apolitical organization? Empire comes from Timbuktu, so I'm a student of the last university. If you know where Timbuktu is in Mali, if ever you can go in your lifetime, go and see something that existed 5,000 years ago. So records in Timbuktu will show you that 5,400 years ago we did brain surgery. We did an eye transplant. Many of the so-called European countries learned about medicine from there. We cured many early diseases. So it means that somewhere in our history there's some goodwill, So I said, if I want to do anything, why don't we call it Empire? And the partner issue was because I feel that today we are here together, you might be competitors, but you're partners really in the ecosystem. And the foundation means it's the experience. Like, I really feel so sorry for Stephanie because every time she calls me, I'm traveling somewhere. But just the one meeting can produce so much of this. We don't have a contract with them. There is no commercial agreement with them. It was just purely us opening up our offices. There are so many offices in the world that will remain empty today. There are so many people that we play in TikTok, I assume. They're bored, So I think if you ask us why today, we just support these initiatives. We've had a great chance. And I think CRM is important because it talks to this digital age. So for the foundation, we said we'll just use technology to solve public sector issues. We built a lot of stuff. So those who know VodaPay, it came from this office. The concept, of those red devices were designed here. If you buy a bond from Better Bond, your approval is done here. If you do for indigent people in South Africa, the indigent verification comes from, I can give you a number of them. For Pepsi, all their factories are designed from here for the utilities. For Grupo Bumbo worldwide, it's done from here. And these are young South Africans building this. So the question is that we're capable. What misses on CRM for us? We speak about service delivery. We complain. Really what it means is that we just need to find systems therefore people need to understand what is a client or a customer, So therefore I said to Stephanie, if it's about something that's going to help people to use this digital ecosystem, use it, Do I use HubSpot? No. Do I have to use it? No.
Not yet.
I don't. I have friends, I don't have clients, you see. That's my problem, you see. One day when I have clients, then I need a CRM. Now only I just have friends. So my view was that I think when we spoke on the phone, we said, come, let's have a function. I think for Stephanie, I think she was very nervous because this is their first function she's hosting. She came to see me yesterday. I said, Stephanie, don't worry, man. Something will happen, And he's here today. So I think for us, it's your flow, you're welcome. I think just to display that in our African, sometimes we have a very difficult time in South Africa because of migratory issues. But we shouldn't forget this is one continent. I don't know why sometimes we feel we're better off than each other. Yes, there are laws, and those are all issues that must be dealt with, But this is the first time I met him. I spoke to him on the phone once, I think so. Maybe I reached out to him on LinkedIn. But there was no need. That's the amount of trust we've had. And that's, I think, for shows us that we have a lot of goodwill. But do we lack CRM and these things? Definitely. I mean, I think it's from a bank to a government to... I think we just figured this customer issue, And I think these systems can enable people. But selfishly, why do I want it? I think if younger people know how to use these systems, we can build a digital ecosystem. Because the fear for Africa is that we'll be left behind this AI curve. That's the true fear. Yes, we all use ChatGPT 9 or whatever you call that thing. So I'm only using Claude now. I'm an old guy, But at least I'm learning how to use it. So I think for me, that's really what today is about. Beyond that, I mean, the rest I'm sure I'm very confident you will achieve whatever you want to achieve.
Thank you very much, Nathan. What a journey, what a journey. That was very exciting. I had CRM capability, enablement, which is something that we're going to talk about. So the biggest question of the day today is, can you have your cake and eat it too? Think about it for a moment. Can you have your cake and eat it too? How do we design CRMs that are secure and AI-enabled? It's scary. People are copying and pasting. How do we train our models to be reliable, to be responsive? Ladies and gentlemen, without very much waste of time, help me welcome Mr. Doug Wendt.
Thank you so much. Thank you, my friend. Doing a wonderful job. Hello, everybody, and thank you. And first of all, thank you to Nathan for an incredible introduction and for hosting us today. Just to set the stage, after the panel session, we're going to adjourn, and then we're actually going to take a tour of the Empire Partner Foundation facilities here, which I had a chance to have a preview tour earlier. It's absolutely amazing. So please join us for that, and then we'll have lunch. So yes, we are excited to have you join us for the panel, but we also want you to have the opportunity to learn about Empire Partner Foundation and also spend time connecting and networking with one another. So that's all part of the plan for the morning and for our lunchtime. I'm Doug Wendt. I'm the president and CEO of Wendt Partners. I'll be introducing our two panelists here in just a moment. The three of us are going to be having a conversation with one another and with you all about this question about designing a CRM that is both AI-enabled and secure. And I have to say that we're each of the three of us, if I can just get my computer to stay in the game. There we go. Each of the three of us is representing one of those aspects. I'm focusing on the question of why have a CRM. Reo is going to be focusing on the question of where is the role of AI in relation to CRM, and then Bernice is going to be focusing on the question of how do we keep all of this secure. And that's going to work beautifully because these are the three roles that we actually play at Wendt Partners. Just a moment about Wendt Partners. We are based in New York City. I'm a New Yorker. You know this, because everybody in South Africa figures out I'm a New Yorker the moment that they say hello. And they say, you're a New Yorker, right? So A, I guess I give it away. B, I forgot my dress shoes, so I'm wearing sneakers today. And C, because the Knicks won in the United States for basketball for the first time in 50 years, my socks are representing the colors of New York City, which are orange and royal blue. So now you know that I'm an absolute diehard New Yorker all the way through and through. That said, I love being here in Johannesburg and the greater Johannesburg region and throughout South Africa with our team. We have about 20 team members. If you saw, we had a display board outside talking about our history in South Africa, and it's a remarkable history. We're today a 52-person firm, And 20 of our 52 team members are in South Africa. Okay, it is our fastest growing talent market for the company. So when we talk about bringing things full circle, I mean it. I'd just like to ask some of our team members who are here today, if you're a Wendt Partners team member, please just raise your hand so everybody can see, and let's give them a round of applause. So there's a vision here, and the vision in a nutshell is to build world-class technology and bring that world-class technology to the world. So yes, we are here because there is a talent community here, but we're also here because there's a business community here. And our role at Wendt Partners is to be one of the top, if not the top, partner for the HubSpot platform in CRM implementation globally. So I was actually just in London. We did an event in London. I'm excited to be here for the event here. Then I'm going to be in Australia and then back to the States where we're continuing a series. This is actually the kickoff program of this AI-enabled and secure series. So thank you for coming. Let me take a moment and introduce our two team members who are going to be joining me in the panel, and then I'm going to join them in the chairs. I'm going to first ask Bernice to introduce herself. Bernice, oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to take it? Let me ask Reo first. They're both like, wait, let me grab my drink of water. And they both did it at the same time. So Reo, if you could take a moment and just introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reo Monareng. I usually go by Reo by the team, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. And Nathan, thank you again for giving us this opportunity to host this function here today. I'm a senior solutions architect here at Wendt Partners. I've been working in around HubSpot as well as the tech space for 8 going on 9 years now, across all functional departments from sales and marketing enablement to technological enablement. And now our primary focus on helping Doug as well as our team bring companies like yours the tool sets that they need to not only sell more, but to make sure that from a customer service perspective that you guys are getting the accurate information into your systems, giving your internal teams the information they need to make accurate sales as well as accurate business decisions, and just making sure that from a data perspective, everything is handled correctly in the correct manner so that there's no data breaches. As you guys know, there's a lot of AI models that are being rolled out. Everyone's super excited to integrate those into their systems. But one thing that we're finding more and more is that not a lot of companies are actually thinking about their AI strategies, thinking about their models, the use cases, as well as the kind of data that they want those specific models to access. So primarily from my side as the solutions architect, that's where I'm coming in. But thank you for this opportunity, Doug, and I'll hand it over to my colleague, Bernice. And again, pleasure to meet you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Reo. My name is Bernice Kapinga, and I am Wendt Partners Technology, Security, Compliance, and Contract Manager. What I do essentially at Wendt Partners, I am the go-to person for everything contract and security. I always say I am the person where legal means security. And this is something that I will emphasize here because we find ourselves in AI where we have 2 different departments, legal and security are separate, but in the nutshell, they need to be speaking to each other. So at Wendt Partner, I am the person who makes sure that we are speaking to each other and making sure that we are secure and the client has peace of mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernice. And I'm the one who forgot to turn off the password on my laptop so it keeps resetting, because of course it does. Excellent. So just a brief word about HubSpot, because my role on this panel is to set the stage for HubSpot. So what is HubSpot? If you're familiar with Salesforce.com, most people have heard of Salesforce.com if you're in business technology at all, or Microsoft CRM. HubSpot, Microsoft, and Salesforce dominate the market for CRM. Okay, those 3 companies, HubSpot is what you might call the challenger brand. That said, it's not like it's new. HubSpot is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. It operates in almost every country in the world, and it has, I think at last count, 600,000 active customers. So this is a very mature platform, but in comparison to the other 2 companies I mentioned, HubSpot is definitely the newer, more of a challenger brand. Okay, HubSpot originally developed less than 15 years ago, or just about 15 years ago. And the vision of HubSpot and why HubSpot is a product that people choose boils down to what's actually on here. And just to let you know, I didn't ask the design team to put my face on here, but here we are. So why buy HubSpot? It really does boil down to this statement: sell more now. HubSpot is a business-focused, sales-focused platform. Okay, now when we say sales, we do mean actually salespeople like me selling. But we also mean customer service. We also mean marketing. We also mean digital experience. One of the things Nathan and I were talking about earlier is the importance of transforming and creating a digital experience. So the HubSpot CRM platform, and we'll talk a little bit about how it works and what it means, allows you to do all of those things. It allows you to create a unified customer experience, the goal of which for the enterprise is to sell more, right? Is to generate more revenue with existing and new customers. Why? Because you're communicating with them proactively, but also because they're having a more transformative customer experience. I'll give you just one very small example, because we ourselves are also students of the question of how to create a transformative customer experience. So Philip on our team recently set up a very simple function, one of the things that is available in the HubSpot platform virtually across the board, and that is a customer feedback survey, except he tied it to our meetings tool. So every time a customer has a meeting with our team, any of the participants in that meeting get a simple survey. How'd it go? Do you have any comments? That's it. We set that up just a few weeks ago. We've been in business 19 years. We have lots of other tools that we already have deployed to help get customer sentiment. But Philip deployed that one tool, and it has been transformative beyond description, because literally it's like getting, if those of you who are old enough to remember, like a ticker tape, like the stock market crawl, okay? It's like getting a stock market crawl in real time of how people are feeling about their experience interacting with our company. That's just one small piece of all of the different tools that are in the HubSpot platform. So the reason people choose HubSpot is because they want to drive sales. They want to grow the enterprise. So if that is a strategic priority for your company or for a company that you know, then I think there's a conversation to be had about where HubSpot can fit in that. And HubSpot is a multi-currency, multinational, multilingual, multi-market capable platform. So we can work with you to support it here and in any other country and in any other market in the world, just as we ourselves are doing. So that's a little bit about HubSpot. We made a definitive choice not to make a demo session today, and we're happy to show anyone a demonstration of the product. But today we really wanted to talk about the issues that everyone's discussing and thinking about. And that does boil down to these two pieces, AI enablement and security. And so let's start by talking about AI enablement. What are some of the things that I'm going to ask Reo a question here as we get started in the panel discussion. Reo, from your perspective, what are some of the things that AI can bring to specifically sales, marketing, customer experience, to that CRM environment? What are some of the problems that we can solve with AI?
Perfect. So some of the key problems that we usually interface with or we uncover working with clients or customers like yourselves as we unpack this AI question is that there's a lot of unstructured data that we've captured over the years that we don't know what to do with, from a marketing perspective, from a sales follow-up perspective, from even just a customer success perspective. So what we found is that AI allows us to uncover those key trends. And then, for example, if you're running a marketing campaign, this specific customer has inquired, let's say 6 times about a specific product. We can use AI to surface that data, automate the outreach, and target those individuals based on what you guys want to sell. From a sales perspective, I'm a salesperson myself, and I'm also on the technical team. So one thing that we found is that AI allows us to make sure that none of the prospects that we're currently working on slip through the cracks. I talk to a lot of people every day. Sometimes I'll miss a name. Sometimes I'll miss a follow-up. So the AI functionalities that are baked into HubSpot allow us to make sure that all of those missed communications, all of the context from our various meetings are accurately tracked in the CRM, surfaced for me, booked in my meeting links so that I can follow up to you based on the context that we've had. So it gives us the ability to have that white glove approach as it relates to engaging with our customers, white glove, extremely targeted approach as it relates to our marketing activities. And then thirdly, from a customer success perspective, if anyone has a complaint or anyone has feedback, as Doug mentioned, Philip rolled out our customer success surveys or meeting follow-up surveys. We're also able to catch any issues before they actually turn into a bigger problem. So AI is, I like to think of it as a tool set that allows me to be more strategic in the decisions I'm making. from a sales, marketing, and customer success perspective. And then also at a data level, allowing me to surface all that information into reports that I can actually use to make informed business decisions. So I think TLDR, from my side, that's what we've seen from the engagements we've had so far. But it's also what excites me about the future of AI and making sure that we're able to do structured business in a way that's not only ethical, but targeted and also streamlined.
Beautiful, thank you. And I'll actually give an example of how I used AI as a CRM user yesterday. And the example is that I send out an email from the CEO on a pretty regular basis, about once a month, to most of our clients and recently past clients, asking them about their experience. I want to hear, now this is not a survey, this is truly like, as the CEO, I want to ask you, if you have any feedback for me, please provide it. And one of our past clients actually said, do you have time? He wrote back and said, do you have time for a 15-minute call? So I opened up HubSpot and I placed the call to him from inside the CRM. So it was digitally transmitted. It wasn't on my cell phone. It was through the internet, right? It was a voice over IP. We had the conversation. He explained that he had some internal challenges with his IT department that were slowing some of the things they were trying to do after the completion of our engagement. I then made some suggestions and recommendations. We agreed to an action plan. I wished him a happy Independence Day, since the United States were coming up to the Independence Day holiday this weekend and on Friday. And HubSpot's AI recorded the meeting, transcribed it, gave me a summary, gave me action items to follow up on. With one click, I could create those as tasks. With another click, I could create a ticket for our technical team to go ahead and start work on this item. And it drafted a follow-up email for me. And I did that all in less than 5 minutes after the completion of a phone call that happened ad hoc, unscheduled, just because of an email exchange between two people. Normally, that would have taken me an hour, hour and a half. In this case, it was done in about 5 to 7 minutes. And when we think about the thing that customers need, desire, want over and over again, it's timeliness, responsiveness, timeliness. How do you maintain responsiveness and timeliness as your organization grows? It's very, very hard, because no matter what, the more customers you have, the more people that you have seeking input from you, seeking your communication. So you have to be as efficient as possible, and the AI helps us do that. Speaking of scaling and the challenges of scaling, Bernice kindly mentioned earlier that she has 4 responsibilities: technology, security, contracts, and compliance. Bernice, before we get into all the specifics of those items, I'm just curious, could you take a moment and tell a little bit of the story of what it's been like for you at Wendt Partners, you know, every once in a while picking up yet another area, and your scope of practice growing as the company has grown. What's that journey been like for you? Because I think it's going to help uncover for us some of the challenges and opportunities as we scale growth companies.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Doug. It has been a journey, although one might look back and say that it's a very short year or years, but it has been insightful because of the exposure. What I've realized being in this position is that you're forever seeing the gap in the system. And this, for example, is while we also hear governance, that's where I will be emphasizing a lot. When we are changing into the AI digital world, a lot of companies do not tighten up, if I can put, their governance. We found, for example, with HubSpot and Breeze AI, you want to first just connect your HubSpot, your CRM to any external AI, but you don't have the necessary governance. And in governance, what does that include? It includes what the AI is allowed to access, how long is allowed to access it, and what is the retention period. All of this, a lot of companies do not emphasize in. So that is something that I said with Doug, I said with Stephanie, that I'm always brainstorming how can we improve. And we work a lot with HIPAA, if I'm not sure if everybody has heard of it, which is the BAA Business Associate Agreement. With HIPAA, you find that it's extremely strict with how we process data. And now one wonders, do you as a company have the necessary framework and infrastructure to process this data and keep this data? And do you adhere to their compliance of how to get rid of this data if it was ever requested. So that is in the compliance side. And in the security, I was in the forefront of our ISO and SOC 2, and that was a journey on itself. It was my first time, if I can be personal, amazing, nervous, nervous a bit, sitting with the auditors, asking questions. But the questions that they were asked, again, ties back to governance. What is the company taking the necessary precautions to make sure that not only as a company are you secure, but also the client. We are not just here to secure ourselves, but also the client. We need to give the client a peace of mind as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Bernice. You brought up a lot of things that I want to key off of. The first is that you reminded me of how I started my own career. So in my first year of my professional career, I sat down as a marketing associate at a company in the United States that was actually a British multinational that had come to the US. And they said, get us ISO 9000 certified. And I said, okay. This was borderline beginning of the internet era. So I actually had to go find magazines and do research at the library. And, for those of you that know, the ISO 9000 standard has become the global standard for business operating systems to ensure quality control within an enterprise. What Bernice took us through, virtually single-handedly, she with support from Stephanie, our head of our operations you met earlier, is the ISO 27001 standard for IT security, which is mind-boggling in comparison to what I had to go through back in the 1990s to get the company that I worked for ISO 9001 certified. So to give you some idea, this was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, we went through both the U.S. standard for IT security, which is called SOC 2. It's from the American Institute of CPAs, and the global ISO standard at the same time. The other thing that I wanted to just add is that Bernice mentioned the HIPAA standard, which is a U.S. standard for healthcare information, privacy, and portability. And so when we work with healthcare clients in the United States, that's the standard they're holding us to. And we have watched clients walk through and try to track the journey of data throughout their entire infrastructure. And one thing, and I'm going to use this as to tee off a question for Reo here, HubSpot has data centers around the world. So if you need a Canadian data center, if you need an EU data center, et cetera, some of our military customers insist in the United States they're required to have a U.S. data center. We can do that, right? But AI quadruples the complexity of the question, where does my data go? And particularly, one thing you'll see here, we've got this, the roll-up banner here referencing Breeze, as Bernice mentioned earlier, and 2 of the popular, what I'm calling enterprise AI products. One is Claude from Anthropic. The other is ChatGPT. If we had more room in the banner, we would have also probably listed Google's platform as well as Microsoft's. There are really 5 dominant players right now in what we're calling enterprise AI. So what I want to ask Reo is, there's these companies that have built these AI products that are designed to operate across your IT stack, not specifically in one piece of software and one application. And then on top of it, each application company has an AI toolkit. In HubSpot, we call it Breeze. So what I described earlier with that phone call with the customer, that was all made possible natively inside HubSpot using Breeze. Reo, what are your thoughts on, software-based AI, enterprise AI? What should the roadmap look like for the companies in this room going forward?
So from an AI standpoint, I'd like keeping it simple, especially if your company's net new to AI functionality. So what I usually recommend is based on your internal data standards as well as your internal IT policies to first, as Bernice mentioned, define a comprehensive AI strategy that determines where you want your data to sit, how you want it to be accessed, as well as the levels at which that data can be accessed. So starting with that initial groundwork actually allows you as well as your teams to also uncover additional gaps that may relate to those specific AI-based questions. So sometimes as we work with clients, much like yourselves every day, we find that there's a lot of gaps in terms of thinking about that overall process. As Doug mentioned, all of these technology companies have data centers and applications that are sitting across the globe. So it's on us as individuals who are responsible for the integrity in our companies to firstly walk our teams through that and define at a high level what that AI strategy needs to look like. As soon as we have that AI strategy in place, what we can then do is then, if we're looking at implementing HubSpot, we can go out to the HubSpot team and say, hey, we're a South African-based company. We'd like our HubSpot data to be hosted in a server that is local to South Africa. If we have more, I would say, lax AI policies, but we still want to be GDPR compliant, we can say, hey, we are open to our data centers being hosted in the UK, which follows the same GDPR standards as us, or in South Africa. And then on top of that, once that foundational data architecture and those critical decisions are made, we can then identify what kind of AI functionalities we then want to plug in into that core CRM. So what I usually recommend, because HubSpot is built on one unified platform, everything is built in one comprehensively secured ecosystem. And then there's also the Breeze functionalities, as Doug mentioned, that are baked into the system. So having your HubSpot instance hosted in a South African data center and you use the HubSpot native tools, you can start off with a safe groundwork for your AI architecture as well as how you can use those specific applications. Once you guys have assessed pretty much that, for example, Breeze meets your needs, I would suggest you keep it all in one ecosystem so that there's no potential gaps where someone can accidentally breach those systems. But HubSpot also allows you to access or plug in, as we call it, external AI models directly into your CRM. Now, again, this ties directly back into the discussion that I had earlier about that AI strategy, because once you start thinking about, for example, plugging in Claude Code into your CRM, plugging in ChatGPT, you need to understand at a high level the kind of access you want these agentic models to have to your data. Do you just want it to read information and provide you guys with reports and insights? Do you want it to actually create, let's say, contacts or an individual in your CRM? All of those questions kind of come back into that overall high-level IT strategy. So, Doug, to your question, what I normally suggest specifically for companies that are in the initial steps of establishing their AI strategy is to first understand internally where your data sits, where you'd like it to sit, how you'd like it to be transformed, and who and what systems can access that data. Once we have those questions in place, we can start thinking about, is Breeze enough from an AI functionality perspective to meet our needs? It's quite robust. We have the customer agent for outbound prospecting. We have the marketing agent for marketing-related automated emails, social media agent for everything on social media. So if someone says, hey, really like your brand, the marketing agency can directly respond to them. Or if someone's like, hey, I would like to find out or meet with, like, for example, your CEO, the prospecting agent can then automate all of those outbound sales tasks and then push them directly to Doug. If we want more rich AI capabilities, there's also three main routes that you can plug in the additional frontier AI models into your system. There are the API route, which is like the industry standard. It requires a developer, and then you and your technology team define exactly how you want that AI to interface with the system. HubSpot, in conjunction with Claude, have also developed what we call a MCP. That's a model context protocol. Similarly to how you guys interface with ChatGPT, it allows you guys with a safe environment or a safe server that allows you guys to actually utilize these AI models and then retrieve information dynamically out of your CRM. But now that we're talking about an external system, it comes back to my initial question where I say you need to have that strategy driven on the front end to see if you guys want to actually give these frontier models access to your CRM or if you want to keep everything native in a safe and secure data center. So hope that answers your question, Doug.
Absolutely. And I want to just zero in on a couple of things that you emphasized there, Reo. The first is that there are indeed three different ways to connect with the HubSpot platform, and actually three different protocols that are available across the IT industry, but HubSpot was the first to establish the availability of all three. Just to reiterate that for those who are thinking about this from a technology architecture perspective, Application Programming Interface, or API, is the first. MCP is the second, or Model Context Protocol. And the third is Command Line Interface. The reason there are three different models is because there are three different ways we can use AI in conjunction with the human operator. And one of the things a lot of us, I was just at an event for top HubSpot partners at the HubSpot headquarters in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just outside Boston, literally last month. And a big question was, where do we put the human in the process? And the conclusion was human in the loop is the right approach. So the role of AI is to enhance the human operator's effectiveness and scalability, okay? And it is the relationship between the human operator and the computer together that makes the magic happen, if you will. But the nice thing about having all three of those protocols is we can instruct the AI to support the human in any of three different ways. Traditional data sharing, that's API, querying the CRM data, both the structured and, as Reo alluded to earlier, the unstructured. That unstructured data is all that context, those call logs, the email back and forth, the notes that you took when you were in that meeting, or increasingly that your wearable device recorded from that meeting. Okay, and by the way, you can even do that with HubSpot's mobile app today. I am a salesperson. I had to make a little plug there. We're trying to be very focused on any context, anytime, any place. But by having the technology open to those three different architectures, Wendt Partners can work with you to design the customer experience that you want and then deliver it on the HubSpot platform. Now, it's interesting because all of this goes back to four things, and they just all happen to be in Bernice's title. We had a lot of fun deciding how to create that title for her, because literally every time we turned around, we were adding another responsibility to her plate. So it's, let me get this right, it's technology. What was the next one? Security, yes. Technology, security, contracts, and compliance. Okay. Now, here's a question that I have for Bernice. I know that you have that you've been studying law for some time, and you're very familiar with the legal and contractual considerations. Looking at the role of general counsel, looking at the role of an attorney in the typical business environment, did you anticipate that anyone who's involved in contracts today really needs to be a technologist? Because you are as much a technologist in our company as you are a contracts officer. But I wouldn't have it any other way. We need a person, and I want you all to think about this in your enterprise. You need at least a person who has a brain and a background for both sides of that equation. In your mind, how do those two interplay, and how did that evolve for you?
Thank you for that question. If I may just give a quick background on how I got to this space. In 2024, I attended a Department of Justice conference that happened, and one of the main topic was enabling AI in the justice system. In that meeting, I asked important questions. What will happen to our data? Who's going to be trained on those data? Do our justice system know how to process this data? And will it be biased? Will it be based on South African data, or is it made somewhere in America or UAE and etc.? Long story short, I found myself down the line, and I realized that when it comes to this tool, which we call AI, and how fast it is moving, it is best for you to have two things, and that is to be in the legal space and in the technology space. Long story short, I am here at Wendt Partners, and then now that I'm looking into reviewing this contract, I see that indeed you cannot have two separate departments. They need to work as one. And here is the reason. As a legal practitioner, you need to know what the team, who is your technicians, your technical team, what they are able to implement. You cannot just have a negotiation process that you say, oh yes, we can implement that. You need to know, are we secure enough? Do we have the necessary function? Do we have the necessary governance when it comes to what the client is looking for? And then in the technical side, or the security side, we need to know what was signed. What if now we sign something that is totally different from what we thought we can secure? So all of this work together as one, and it cannot be different. like I said in my introduction, both teams needs to speak to each other before we can proceed effectively.
And I'm going to add, Bernice, in our discussions, because typically when Bernice is reviewing contracts with potential clients, sometimes I'm the human in the loop. She brings me into the loop. Here are the business considerations. Do you approve? What I'm fascinated by is how often we are essentially quietly teaching our clients how to do technology, security, contracts, and compliance. Because they come with a contract, they have edits to the master service agreement, they have a non-disclosure agreement, they have a technology disclosure agreement, and often Bernice is reviewing them and determining that those things they want us to sign off on are not harmonious. Their documents are not aligned. Their processes are not aligned. They may not be clear. Sometimes the IT department has us fill out an IT security questionnaire, and the questions are inconsistent with the information that's in the contract amendments they want us to review. So I find that, and I almost think, geez, we should start another division. No. But there's a whole realm that we are uncovering on the front line of companies not having figured out yet that this needs to be unified. Okay, so Reo is unifying it from a technology architecture perspective. Okay, and Bernice is unifying it from the technology, the security, the contracts, and the client's perspective. You know, interestingly, when I was thinking about the content for this program, my mind was focused on telling the story of, you know, what we're doing with HubSpot and Wendt Partners, and that's all true. But really, it's what we're doing with the company, how these individuals and their roles have evolved. There's a reason that we have Reo and Bernice here. It's because their two roles represent the future of what our client companies need. And we work with small companies and we work with huge, enterprises. And I don't see any real significant difference, to be honest, in the preparation or clarity between a 50-person company and a 50,000-person enterprise. They're all struggling with these questions, right? Would that be your estimation?
Yes.
Yeah. Reo, your thoughts?
100% correct from my side, because one thing that we find across all companies, doesn't matter, as Doug mentioned, if it's a big or a small company, at the individual level, my data is my data. So if I find that a company misuses my data, or for example, my data is leaked to these third-party providers and now I'm getting random calls every day trying to sell me a new cell phone contract, that is a prime example of where companies have missed that gap in just maintaining that their data is actually, or the data that we provide to them is actually taken into consideration and carefully planned for. So Doug, to your question, from my side, as well as working with Bernice on a lot of these projects, we're finding that there's a rising gap in the overall understanding from a technical perspective that a lot of companies are facing, and how that actually directly ties into the legislations as well as the practices that need to be enforced legally. So it's now turning into a new frontier where we need to marry the law into the actual technology so that we can come out with comprehensive plans on how we handle the data and how we conduct, like, for example, ethical selling, ethical marketing, while still being able to utilize that data.
Thank you, Reo. Bernice, closing thoughts for you then. What are the one or two steps you would recommend that the companies and organizations represented in this room take to begin their journey on creating an infrastructure that is AI-enabled and secure?
Thank you for that question. The first thing is I would like you guys to have a meeting with your legal team and your security team. Make sure that each team knows what is happening in the company. So that means with the legal team, they know what is happening in the technical, in the security area. The security area knows what is in the contract, and we need to have that unified. Second part is governance. Look at your governance. Do you have a data governance framework, which emphasizes in three things. One, is the data going to be public? Is it private? Is it restricted? Two, who has access to this? And three, can you filter these data and etc. So have this look into your governance structure. See where you can amend, because you must remember that, yes, with these three AI, except for Breeze, because that is a native AI to HubSpot, Claude and ChatGPT, these are external AI that you are plugging into your CRM. So, for example, with HubSpot has the ability to be plugged to so many AI tools. But you must remember, HubSpot security is for HubSpot. So once you start plugging in your Claude AI and ChatGPT, the responsibility is on you. And you need to make sure you have the necessary framework and it is tight fitted. And also another thing, please do make sure that the vendors that you do have conversation with are ISO and SOC 2 compliant. You know, we have CISO, who is Drew Danner, an amazing cybersecurity personnel. He always says that ISO is a point in time. So which means you have your audit on Tuesday and Thursday, people black side. And then SOC 2 is a monitoring window. So which means you monitoring consistently until the end. I'm not saying one is better than other, both are essential, but with AI, we need to start looking at implementing SOC 2, we need to start implementing our ISO to make sure that we are secure as a company and also the client.
Thank you, Bernice, and thank you, Reo. I want to kind of bring all this full circle to some of the themes that actually we talked about at the beginning with Nathan. So when I co-founded this company 19 years ago, we're not just headquartered in New York City. We're headquartered in Queens, New York City. For those of you who may be familiar, New York City is divided into 5 boroughs: Manhattan, Staten Island, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. The reason that we're headquartered in Queens is because it's affectionately called the world's borough. It's the most diverse place on earth. There is literally no other place on the planet where you can encounter as many people, cultures, nationalities, religions, languages in one place as you can in Queens. That concept, that vision of being truly global as a company is in our DNA. It's one of the reasons that we're very actively involved in the Global Chamber. It's one of the reasons that I'm here. We have found that by being open to the world, we are learning and creating incredible talent as represented by our panelists and by the people in this room. And we're also finding amazing customer relationships to boot. So from the perspective of Wendt Partners, we are honored to be here, and we were able to be here because of the openness of other people to our involvement, to our presence. We are committed to growing our company in South Africa. Our growth here has been meteoric, to say the least, and this is just the beginning of the journey. So if you are thinking about CRM strategy, if you are thinking about your customer experience, and you want to make sure that the conversations and strategies you have about that consider AI and IT security, those 2 poles, please chat with us. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Before we adjourn, I think we forgot the most important thing, questions. I'd like us to engage. I'd like you to engage, ask real questions, ask Doug questions from what you have heard today. What is exciting? What uncertainty do you have? What do you need clarity on? So if there's any questions, just pop when you're ready.
We work with a lot of, come in contact with a lot of entrepreneurs who are starting small businesses to medium-sized businesses. I guess one of the clear things is that this is a very important, from a contextual perspective, important discussion. It talks about compliance, governance, protection. Is it linked to POPI Act, etc., POPIA Act, yeah. Those are things that we are trying to maneuver the landscape for these businesses. And one of the questions that always gets asked is the affordability when we move into AI and digital. So what's your position with regards to affordability, understanding South Africa's landscape, and also what we maneuver in this external socioeconomic environment?
That's a spectacular question. So to summarize, you're working with entrepreneurs, startups, SMBs, right, or SMEs, and this is all expensive, right? This is time consuming, it's financially costly. How do we deal with that when today, even a very small company is expected to meet and exceed all these requirements? I mean, let's be clear, Wendt Partners is a relatively small company. I said 52 people, not 500 or 5,000, right? And we determined very early on that we needed to be very much on the cutting edge. There's no way around the effort and some of the cost. I'm pleased to report that HubSpot, the software company that we are partnered with, has a special program for startups that offers the software at an enormous discount. And we can help companies apply for and be eligible for that program. So from the technology side, there are a lot of pathways. One of the other things that we can do is help clients stage those steps in the path. You don't have to do all these things at once, but they need to be on your roadmap. Bernice, any thoughts you want to add?
Doug, you've said it all. I just want to add and say that when it comes to security, you can have a secured framework, you can have a secure thing. There's something that most businesses who are winning are not choosing safety over speed. You know, they are choosing partners who have been in this game for long and who have the necessary governance in it. So choosing the right partner is the way to go that I have analyzed. As you know, you don't have to spend more money in creating a structure framework that you are unfamiliar with, rather than choosing a partner that has already in place. So yeah, that is where I will say a lot of startups should partner with partners who have been in the game for a long time and adhering to all the frameworks. You mentioned POPIA Act. POPIA Act is very crucial because that works with personal information. We have also the Cybercrime Act as well, and the Consumer Act. So all three acts are crucial in AI as well. So looking for partners who are experts in that area is great. With HubSpot and myself, we work simultaneously with such acts. It might not be exactly the POPIA Act, the cybercrime, but we understand the importance of it and how to implement it. Yeah.
Thank you, Bernice. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So maybe this one is more on the capability side of the business. So I work with a lot of partners, and what I've noticed, tier ones or tier two partners, is the lack of adoption. When they sell licenses to end customers, the consumption, I would be sitting with licenses that I see they are burning, they are not being used fully or to its fullest capability. And for me to track that, it's quite a work, because I work with a lot of partners. But for your HubSpot capability, is there, maybe from a customer success perspective, is there a way that you guys kind of like close that gap?
Thank you, Doug. So one thing that we kind of do different at Wendt Partners as opposed to other HubSpot implementation partners is that we have an entire division that's dedicated 100% to that training, user adoption, change management, and enablement space. So for example, if we work with, for example, one of your partners, we configure the CRM to their specific use case. We actually provide training and comprehensive curriculum-based coaching to them so that we can slowly onboard them onto the CRM in a way that actually makes sense to them from their day-to-day operational perspective. And then also, over and above that, provide them with all of the relevant materials so that, for example, if they forget how to use a specific tool set, if they forget how to use a specific feature, that they have that information directly on hand so that they can just refresh themselves on that information. There's also tools in HubSpot that we can plug in directly into the CRM that will leave little icons within the CRM that allow you to actually click on them and then get a brief explanation of what that capability is, how to use it, as well as how to follow up on that. So from a Wendt Partners perspective, we have a dedicated training division that is there to enforce that user adoption, IT enablement, and change management perspective. And then also on the back end, because we are a HubSpot partner, we also have access to that usage metric. So if we see, for example, one of your partners, the usage rates are slowly trickling down, we can hit you up and say, hey, we're noticing this slight decline in your overall user performance as well as how they're utilizing the tool. Potentially they need retraining in one specific aspect of the CRM or one specific subgroup as it relates to their licenses. So to your question, it's kind of a two-pronged approach. It's first comprehensive training and coaching based on your partner's specific use case. And then over and above that, also just making sure that we look at those metrics and make sure that, as you mentioned, we're not burning those licenses and everyone's engaged with the system.
Thank you, Reo. I think we have time for one more question.
Hi. So you mentioned a number of different AI, I guess, providers, Breeze being internal to the actual application itself. From a use case perspective, when would you, sort of recommend people stick to Breeze? Sort of move to Claude. How does that, sort of decision effectively come about? Or alternatively, if somebody is actually in, so the Anthropic ecosystem, where you would look and say, well, all of the functionality that you're using within, sort of Claude is available within Breeze, it would be, sort of more beneficial to move and, sort of retain everything within that HubSpot ecosystem.
When and where? How do we choose when to use the application-specific AI versus an external AI? So one of the models we're developing for our clients is like a layer cake. It's 3 layers for AI. One is enterprise-wide. That's sort of the foundation. That would be your selection of a Claude, a ChatGPT, et cetera, a Copilot. The next then decision is whether or not you're going to use AI that's available in your individual enterprise applications. Most companies are saying yes. So we're operating on the assumption that they will utilize Breeze for certain things, and I'll answer the question of what we recommend for in a moment. And then the third is desktop. So for example, it's not mentioned here in the official materials, but we're also a partner for a product called Superhuman, which is designed really for founders and executives to help supercharge the management of their inbox, their calendar, all the things that are desktop level. So we're anticipating that clients will have AI choices to make at all 3 levels. The key is what to use when, to your point. My answer is there's a divide in thought on whether we want AI to be my primary interface or the software to be my primary interface. Now, there's always that 5% of the market that lives on the bleeding edge of awesome. And, anytime a new model comes out, they've already been using it for a week before you even knew it existed. Okay. Outside of that 5%, most organizations and all of our clients want their users utilizing applications as opposed to living purely in like a Claude or a ChatGPT. I mean, who knows what the future holds, but our vision is that we want users living inside the applications themselves because that's where the context is. So imagine that conversation I had with a customer. I could have told Claude, great, now send these notes to my CRM and then come back to me with I could have interacted with all those things using a Claude or a ChatGPT, but it would be without context. By doing it inside HubSpot and using the Breeze capabilities, I'm not having to leave where the entire customer history is, where the history of our interactions, our notes, our engagements, every time they've purchased from us. All of this other context that my eyes are seeing that is helping me make better decisions. So I think the answer is to use the AI tool that is closest to the context that your user needs in that moment. So where we're seeing customers utilize Claude and ChatGPT and other external tools isn't at the user level. It is at enterprise. In fact, we've developed a new model, which is in our video, where we're saying AI and BI are twins. Okay, BI is give me business intelligence, help me answer questions with summaries of my data and activities that are happening in my company, right? AI helps answer the questions that BI is asking. That's our view in terms of where enterprise AI sits, but I want my CRM users using the tools that are closest to them. Anything you want to add to that, Reo?
Yeah, thank you, Doug. And that's a very good question. So from my side, to Doug's point, it's about understanding what that specific user needs. So if it's, for example, a marketing team member, a sales team member, I usually recommend them staying within the application because, as Doug mentioned, that's where the context lives. That's where all of the previous interactions live. That's where the last call that I had with you live from a transcript perspective, where we usually see the Anthropic Claudes as well as Cursor as well as the ChatGPTs get plugged in is at that high-level enterprise use case when we want to run quote unquote bulk operation. So I need to look at my entire database, pull this specific set of BI reports, and then present it to my Exco team. It's sometimes easier to have Claude code plugged in via the CLI on the back end to just make sure that we can easily surface that information. And then from a super user perspective, if they are using, for example, external GPTs, we usually recommend moving them directly into HubSpot, because a lot of the HubSpot foundational technologies as well as the AI tool sets are actually built in conjunction with these AI frontier companies. So HubSpot as a company works with OpenAI and Claude to actually build out the Breeze functionality. So from a functionality perspective, they like, but as I mentioned before, we just want to make sure that there's no instances where external parties can access that data, as well as if you guys have super stringent, for example, technical standards as well as security standards, it's usually easier for us to just make sure that everything is done directly within the CRM. And then if you need to extract or make any bulk updates to the data within the CRM from a reporting perspective or from an update perspective, that's when we used kind of that high-level enterprise functionality to execute those kind of activities. So hope that answers your question.
Bernice, closing comments on this. I keep coming back to you because you're the person whose job it is to make sure that everything we do, none of it gets us in trouble. So with your question, I answered and suggested there are 3 layers to the AI layer cake. That's a lot of governance. Any closing thoughts on how we keep track of and manage AI in all of its permutations in our enterprise IT environment?
Awesome. Thank you, Doug. I just want to first just give a quick background on the 3 AI. With Claude, you have a 7-day per request retention period. So which means if you do ask for your data to be removed, it can be removed. ChatGPT has a 30 days retention period as well. So that being said, when you're looking at your AIs and which AIs to plug in, you need to also look at this retention period. You need to know what data is being used. Is your data being used to train these modules? For example, Claude and ChatGPT in an enterprise tier, you do not use those data to train any of their models, except if it's a public tier. And then that's a lot of areas from the business perspective, is that a lot of businesses, they use the public tier not knowing that when you plug it in, you are using your data to train the modules. So you just have to make sure which tier you are using. Breeze, on the other hand, they have a 0 retention agreement with their sub processors. So which means they do not use any of your data to train any external models at all. So you having that in mind, and obviously having your governance in state, you have a whole entire tool and framework to see to filter out the different AIs and see which one is applicable to what you need in a company. Yeah.
Let's discuss pain points. What is it that you guys are experiencing in your businesses today? What do you need help with? What's frustrating? And I think that will help the team to go back to the drawing board, even with our strategy into South Africa, to say, okay, this is what people are experiencing and how relevant we are to the customers here. So anyone who wants to share the pain point with us? I'll nitpick.
I'll go first if you don't, because I got plenty of pain points to talk about.
Sure.
I mean, a pain point for me was the realization about 2.5 years ago that we needed to figure out and implement an IT security strategy that was globally compliant and enter the AI space race, if you will, in a manner that was globally adaptable. And I'm just going to reiterate, my solution was to have these individuals join the team. Think about your organization. Going back to a startup, I normally would have said, hey, when you're at a certain level, let's say, I don't know, $1 million a year in revenue or more, using US terms. Sorry about that. Then maybe hire someone like Bernice. I would now say, I would flip that on its ear and say, someone like Bernice needs to be on your founding team. Someone like Reo needs to be on your founding team. This is the leadership structure that we all need at the foundation of our companies today. which turns the traditional org chart completely upside down. Because I don't know about you, but when I went to business school, we divided everything up by functions. There's the head of marketing, the head of sales. Then over here is, then we added IT because the IT people, back then we called them MIS, and they kept complaining that they didn't have a C-level position. So then we made up, CTO, CIO, half the room's probably CTOs and CIOs. You know what I'm saying? It was a fight to get to the executive table, right? CFO, CEO, all of these are operationally divided functions. In case you hadn't figured it out, it took me a while to figure it out. These team members are operating across multiple functions. They are breaking down barriers that our traditional leadership and organizational charts make impossible to cross. The only reason we're able to do this is because we're small enough still and because they told me to, and I was fortunate enough to listen to them. But think about the human side of this. Think about the managerial side of this. How will you have the people who can help the company make these decisions and implement these technologies? This is a real world challenge for us as a HubSpot partner. Reo can tell you, because he and I work together in a lot of sales cycles, that half of what we do isn't talking about software. It's convincing people to bring other departments to the table. Marketing wants the system, but sales isn't in the conversation. Sales wants the system, but they haven't asked IT. IT is interested in the system, but no one's checked with legal. Guess what? Unless all those people are represented in the room, there is no decision, right? So in a very small organization, in a startup, you need to have talent and a handful of people that can address all those things. In a larger organization, you need to bring those people to the table. That's really, like, as a CEO, my takeaway for all of us is, if I were to call a meeting in my company to talk about the topic of today's event, how many people would I need to ask in order to represent all the functions that we've implied and discussed here? And how hard would it be to get them all to have that conversation in the same room at the same time and come out with some kind of consensus? That's what we all need to do, okay? Because here's the fun part of all of this. The fun part is this technology allows everybody an even playing field. I don't care what country you're in. I don't care how large you are. I don't care what markets you serve. You now have an opportunity to leapfrog your competition. Like I said, we're a small company. But we are one of HubSpot's top partners. We're beating out partners with 3 times, 4 times as many employees. Why? Because of this talent and this strategy that honestly is not mine. I stumbled upon it because they told me, and we started moving in this direction. That's what you need to think about in order to transform your company. How do you get your leadership team organized around these components? If you can do that, then we can implement the technologies that are going to revolutionize your customer experience. If we can't, we're going to do it piece by piece by piece. And 5 years from now, you're still going to be on that journey trying to figure out how to get the next piece plugged in. So I hope that that's food for thought. This is something that I've been thinking about constantly as a CEO.
Awesome. Thank you. No, Silas. So I'm going to take one last pain point. And Lee, I'm going to pick you because I know we talk a lot and I know you've been singing CRM. So Lee is from LF Media. I'll let you introduce your company and maybe tell us about the pain points that you have.
So we run a company called Same Day Embroidery, and he has banned me from buying systems and trying systems and all that. So I'm looking for a system that that can handle our customers' production and all that. So I thought it would be nice that maybe one of you guys come to the office and actually see what I need, because it's a lot. I have an example of what I need. I have tried HubSpot, but maybe because it's now AI and all that is good or easier for us to use. I want something that my team can use without any, challenges. So that's why I'm here today. So I'm hoping that you guys are my solution today, because I'm just tired of all systems that wouldn't work, because it's either it works on production, but it doesn't work on customers, because I want when
when we've digitized the logo, we need to send it to the client, and then they approve online. Once they've approved, it says approved. Now your order is at production, and it will be ready in 3 days. Once it's ready, it says your order is ready for collection and all that stuff. So that's what I'm looking for. So hopefully.
I'm really glad you framed the question that way, because you brought us back to why we're really here. When we strip all the technology away, it's very simple. How do we serve our clients? How do we serve our customers with enthusiasm, accuracy, timeliness, and distinction? Okay? And that's not easy. Even if it's something that you desire, that's in your heart, that's in your passion and your vision, it's hard to scale that. It's hard to do that with a team. It's hard to do that with a business. So yes, that's why HubSpot exists. Wendt Partners exists to set up HubSpot in a way that makes it so you don't have to think about it. It just works. And I want to conclude by saying, let's all think about how we can improve our customers' experience so that what they experience matches the vision that we have.
Honestly, it was a 10 out of 10 experience. Would do again. Honestly speaking, I find myself in a position where, as a new co-founder and director of an upstart, this situation right here was a bit of an on-the-job learning experience. But honestly, for a first time, this was pretty amazing.
Really informative speakers, really engaging, and a great organization to be presenting.
I learned a lot. AI world, of course. So I came here for one thing, and I'm sure, and I think I found that, because I am looking for a system. So the event was really great, informative, beautiful.
I actually got what I wanted. I managed to get more information about how we can integrate AI into our business.
The biggest takeaway was security. Security. It's important for the smallest startup to the biggest enterprise, and Wendt Partners gives every client the opportunity to understand the levels of security that are necessary for their business. We enforce that.
Data security is not to be taken lightly, that it is a very serious topic. It's a very complex topic, and AI complicates it dramatically more, but definitely cannot be overlooked by organizations, and needs to be part of any business's strategic planning.
The event was very informative. I really like the governance part mostly, because what I have identified from a person who comes from a background of sales or from a marketing point of view, and as an employee or part of a company, is that often what employees do, they just take any data, because essentially what they want to do is to deliver results, right? So in the process of that, IT doesn't have visibility, cybersecurity doesn't have visibility of that. So with that said, they lose a lot of important information of the company. So that information can be exported from any CRM tool that, even if it's got an AI tool protection, but will be then inputted in various other AI platforms. So things such as shadow AI will then be taking place.
I was able to pick out mass oversights throughout my company and the setup. Safe to say, once I go home, I need to completely restructure everything, restructure my foundations. But yeah, to the future.
Well, the importance of today's event, it emphasizes across all different companies, from startup or mid-size as well as large enterprises, that AI shadow is important, data governance is important. As much as companies often think, we have a tool, we have an MSP, we have that, but do they know what their employees are doing? So the governance part, that's where it comes in.
I definitely agree with Philip on this in terms of the way Wendt handles things and the way that they obviously take things into consideration. Because again, our team members will basically stand out for this and explain the same. HubSpot works for a lot of people, but the way it works for every customer is different. And that's what Wendt really takes into consideration, is tailor-making every solution for the customer and the business use cases.
Hello, I am Stephanie Tassier, Head of Operations and Emerging Market Leads at Wendt Partners, New York-based elite HubSpot partner. I want to give the opportunity to say thank you very much to our hosts of the day, Nathan, founder of Empire Partner Foundation, Joanna, the CEO of Empire Foundation, and Pamela, the event coordinator with Empire Partner Foundation. And also to the Wendt Partners side, Doug Wendt, the CEO and founder of Wendt Partners, Bernice Kapinga, Technology Security, Compliance and Contracts Manager, Reo Monareng, our Senior Solutions Architect. This has been an amazing day and amazing conversations had around technology, CRM, AI, and safety. It's been a pleasure having amazing guests from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all different business fields, having a beautiful and amazing conversation around these topics. It's been a beautiful day. Just want to say thank you very much. I've had fun. The conversations were enlightening. We did a beautiful tour of the Empire Partner Foundation building. Very enlightening as to what they do, AI campus, technology, safety. Just very excited to continue this conversation all across the world and to continue to work and grow our business here in South Africa. Thank you very much.